Lee Marvin names the 7 actors he hates most. Lee Marvin was born on February 19, 1924, in New York City. Marvin grew up in a family of military tradition. His father was a World War I veteran, and his brother would also serve. This early exposure to discipline and service influenced the no-nonsense, rugged masculinity that would later define his career. He attended schools in Florida and New Jersey but was a restless youth, often in trouble and struggling to conform to rigid academic structures. His early years hinted at the rebellious streak and raw intensity that he later channeled into his screen performances. Marvin's life took a dramatic turn with the outbreak of World War II, when he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps at the age of 18. He served with the 4th Marine Division in the Pacific Theater and saw brutal combat in the Battle of Saipan in 1944, where he was severely wounded by machine gun fire. Shot in the buttocks and sciatic nerve, he spent over a year recovering in a naval hospital and was ultimately awarded the Purple Heart. These wartime experiences left him scarred both physically and emotionally, but also gave him an authenticity when portraying soldiers, outlaws, and tough men on screen. Unlike many actors who only played war heroes, Marvin actually lived through the horrors of combat, which gave his performances an edge of realism that audiences instinctively recognized. After the war, Marvin drifted through odd jobs before finding himself working as a plumber's assistant at a community theater. Almost by chance, he was asked to step into a small role when an actor fell ill, and the experience sparked an interest in acting. Encouraged by mentors, he began training in New York, studying at the American Theater Wing. His unusual height, rugged looks, and natural intensity made him stand out, and he soon transitioned from stage work into film and television. Marvin's early Hollywood career was marked by supporting roles as heavies, villains, and soldiers, often in westerns and war films. His breakout came in the 1950s with strong supporting roles in films such as The Big Heat, 1953, where he played a chilling gangster, and Bad Day at Black Rock, 1955, where his menacing presence elevated the suspense. Throughout the decade, he became one of the most reliable bad guys in Hollywood, bringing grit and menace to every role. The 1960s, however, marked his transformation from supporting actor to major star. Marvin headlined films that showcased his versatility. In John Ford's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, he portrayed the vicious outlaw Liberty Valance opposite John Wayne and James Stewart, creating one of the most memorable villains in Western cinema. He also showed a lighter side in Cat Ballou, 1965, where he astonished audiences by playing dual roles, both the drunken gunfighter Kid Shelleen and the villainous Tim Strawn. His hilarious yet poignant performance won him the Academy Award for Best Actor, cementing his place among Hollywood's elite. Following this triumph, Marvin became one of the era's most bankable leading men. He starred in The Dirty Dozen, 1967, an ensemble war epic that became a massive box office hit and remains one of his most iconic films. His commanding performance as Major John Reisman, tasked with leading a group of convicts on a dangerous mission, resonated with audiences and influenced later generations of war and action films. Other standout films included Point Blank, 1967, a stylish neo-noir thriller where he embodied a relentless anti-hero, and Paint Your Wagon, 1969, a musical in which he surprised audiences by singing, albeit in his gravelly, off-key manner. Despite his success, Marvin was known for his independent spirit and refusal to play by Hollywood's rules. He disliked the trappings of celebrity, preferring a private life of fishing, boating, and outdoor living. He often retreated to his home in Tucson, Arizona, or his beloved Baja California, Mexico, where he found peace away from the industry. Marvin was also candid about his struggles with alcohol, which at times affected his personal and professional life. In his later career, he continued to appear in films such as Emperor of the North, 1973, The Klansman, 1974, Avalanche Express, 1979, and Gorky Park, 1983. Even as he aged, Marvin brought gravitas and toughness to his roles, embodying a brand of masculinity that seemed increasingly rare in the changing landscape of Hollywood. His final film was The Delta Force, 1986, in which he co-starred with Chuck Norris, playing a grizzled military leader in one last salute to his action hero persona. Lee Marvin's personal life was as colorful and complex as his celebrated career on screen. In April 1952, at the height of his early rise in Hollywood, Marvin married Betty Ebeling, a union that would last 15 years and produce 4 children. Their first child, a son named Christopher Lamont Marvin, 1952 to 2013, carried on the family name and lived a full life before passing away in 2013. Alongside him, the couple welcomed 3 daughters, Courtney Lee Marvin, Cynthia Louise Marvin, and Claudia Leslie Marvin, 1958 to 2012. Each child brought joy and responsibility into Marvin's often turbulent existence, balancing his demanding life as an actor with his role as a father. Although Marvin was known publicly as a rugged screen presence, his children represented a softer, more private side of him, one that friends and colleagues often remarked was in stark contrast to his hard-edged film characters. Despite the foundation of family, the marriage between Lee and Betty was not without its struggles. The pressures of Hollywood life, Marvin's heavy drinking, and his erratic behavior contributed to a strain that eventually proved insurmountable. After a separation that lasted 2 years, the couple's marriage officially ended in divorce in January 1967. The split was painful, not only for Marvin and Betty but also for their children, who grew up caught between the glare of Hollywood and the reality of family fracture. Many years later, in 2010, Betty offered her own perspective on their marriage in her candid memoir, Tales of a Hollywood Housewife, a memoir by the first Mrs. Lee Marvin. In the book, she recounted her experiences as the wife of a rising film star, shedding light on both the glamour and the hardships of being tied to a man whose career demanded constant attention. Betty even claimed that Marvin had been unfaithful during their marriage, alleging that he had an affair with acclaimed actress Anne Bancroft, a revelation that added another layer of intrigue to the already complex narrative of Marvin's personal life. Following his divorce, Marvin's romantic life continued to capture public attention, particularly with his long-term and very public relationship with Michelle Triola, a woman who became central not only to his personal story, but also to American legal history. Their relationship ended in one of the most famous palimony lawsuits of the 1970s, a case that tested the boundaries of cohabitation rights and made headlines nationwide. However, after the turbulence of that relationship, Marvin found a measure of stability and solace when he reconnected with Pamela Feely, his childhood sweetheart. The reunion was more than a romantic rekindling. It was a return to familiarity, comfort, and the innocence of earlier days before fame had complicated his life. The two married in 1970, and unlike Marvin's previous relationships, this marriage endured. Pamela remained by his side through the highs and lows of his later career, as well as during his declining health in the 1980s, staying with him until his death in 1987. After Marvin's passing, Pamela honored their bond and her husband's memory by writing and publishing the memoir Lee, A Romance in 1997. In the book, she shared not only intimate stories of their life together, but also a deeply personal portrayal of the man behind the tough screen persona. While audiences knew Marvin as the gravel-voiced anti-hero of films like The Dirty Dozen and Point Blank, Pamela painted a picture of a more vulnerable, affectionate, and deeply human figure. Her book became both a love letter and a testament to the enduring bond that had brought them together again after so many years apart, ensuring that Lee Marvin's legacy was remembered not only in cinematic terms, but also in the more intimate realm of love, companionship, and family. Lee Marvin, the tall, gravel-voiced actor with a reputation for toughness, did not mince words when it came to his feelings about his fellow performers. Known for being brutally honest and often cantankerous, Marvin once stunned Hollywood by candidly admitting that there were certain actors he simply could not stand. When asked to name names, Marvin did not hesitate. He rattled off a list of 7 men in the business who, for one reason or another, rubbed him the wrong way. Each name carried its own history of grudges, professional clashes, and personality conflicts that revealed as much about Marvin himself as it did about those he despised. John Wayne. Although many fans assumed Marvin admired Wayne because they had both built careers on war films and westerns, Marvin privately disliked him. The two clashed during the filming of the Comancheros and later during their Academy Award rivalry. Marvin, who had fought in World War II and been wounded in combat, resented Wayne's carefully cultivated image as a war hero when, in fact, Wayne had never served in the military. He reportedly said Wayne played soldier better than anyone but couldn't take the mud, blood, or bullets. Marvin also disliked Wayne's political views, considering him too rigidly conservative, and the tension between them lasted until Marvin's death. Charles Bronson. Marvin often described Charles Bronson as too cold and too full of himself. They worked in similar types of films, gritty action pieces, but Marvin thought Bronson lacked range and relied too much on his physical presence rather than emotional depth. He also accused Bronson of being unfriendly and uncooperative on set, refusing to engage with fellow cast members. Bronson's reclusive and brooding personality clashed with Marvin's outspoken and confrontational nature. Marvin once joked, "Working with Bronson is like talking to a wall, except the wall has more personality." Robert Mitchum. While both were known for their rugged personas, Marvin and Mitchum never got along. Marvin claimed Mitchum was lazy, often showing up to sets unprepared or hungover, and he resented what he saw as Mitchum's coasting through roles. Mitchum, in turn, mocked Marvin's intensity and tendency to dominate scenes. Their mutual dislike boiled over when they crossed paths at a Hollywood party, where Marvin accused Mitchum of sleepwalking through entire films, to which Mitchum retorted, "At least I don't scream my lines like I'm still in boot camp." Telly Savalas. Marvin had little patience for actors who he felt were more concerned with their image than the craft of acting, and Telly Savalas fell squarely into that category. Marvin disliked Savalas's constant self-promotion, his fixation on his signature bald look, and his reputation for being difficult with directors. On the set of The Dirty Dozen, Marvin reportedly referred to Savalas as a peacock in combat boots and accused him of trying to steal scenes. Their rivalry created such tension that crew members often had to keep them apart between takes. Yul Brynner. Another actor Marvin bristled at was Yul Brynner. Brynner's regal, almost aloof demeanor clashed with Marvin's rough-and-tumble approach. Marvin disliked Brynner's insistence on being the center of attention both on and off screen. He often criticized Brynner's control-freak tendencies, especially his habit of demanding specific camera angles that favored his appearance. Marvin once quipped, "Brynner doesn't act, he just stands there waiting for the light to hit him right." Their animosity came to a head when Marvin turned down a project after learning Brynner was attached, saying, "I'd rather drink battery acid than share a scene with him." Tony Curtis. Marvin despised Tony Curtis for what he saw as phoniness. To Marvin, Curtis embodied everything artificial about Hollywood: polished looks, charm, and fame without grit. Curtis's flamboyant style and eagerness to play romantic leads clashed with Marvin's view of what real acting should be. Marvin was especially bitter about Curtis's ability to maintain a pretty boy reputation, while Marvin, scarred from his wartime service, had to claw his way into tough guy roles. "Tony Curtis wouldn't last 2 minutes in a bar fight," Marvin once scoffed, "yet he's treated like some kind of legend." Frank Sinatra. Perhaps the most surprising name on Marvin's list was Frank Sinatra. Though Sinatra was beloved as both a singer and actor, Marvin considered him arrogant, temperamental, and disrespectful to cast and crew. Marvin, who had little tolerance for what he perceived as unprofessionalism, took issue with Sinatra's tendency to show up late, leave early, and expect everyone to adjust around his schedule. Their clash on the set of The Dirty Dozen, Sinatra was originally attached before pulling out, left Marvin with nothing but disdain. He later described Sinatra as the kind of guy who thinks the world owes him applause just for walking into a room. Lee Marvin's list of 7 hated actors says as much about his uncompromising personality as it does about the men he disliked. Marvin, a decorated Marine veteran who carried both physical scars and a blunt worldview, had little patience for what he saw as pretentiousness, laziness, or ego-driven behavior in Hollywood. Whether his criticisms were fair or colored by his own gruff nature, Marvin never backed down from speaking his mind. To the end of his life, he remained the rare actor who would rather burn bridges than pretend to like someone he despised. A heavy smoker and drinker, Marvin had health problems by the end of his life. In December 1986, Marvin was hospitalized for more than 2 weeks because of a condition related to coccidioidomycosis. He went into respiratory distress and was administered steroids to help his breathing. He had major intestinal ruptures as a result and underwent a colectomy. Marvin died of a heart attack on August 29, 1987, aged 63. He was buried with full military honors at